This is Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, brought to you by the Iowa Soybean Association, your source for the latest Iowa ag news headlines right here in the heart of the heartland. With reports from our award-winning team of Dustin Hoffman, Riley Smith, Mark Magnuson, and Andy Peterson. Now, from the IARN studios in Des Moines, here's Dustin.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. I'm Dustin Huffman. Today is Tuesday, June the 24th, 2025. We're so glad you could join us here today. Coming up a little later on in the program, we'll talk with Kaden Sweeney of agmarket.net to find out what happened in those closing markets. But first, we're going to talk with National Pork Producer Council's Dr. Ashley Johnson. We started talking back in May about the nutritional guidelines that they're anticipating coming out later this year. But we were also hinting at an upcoming MAHA report at that time. Well, the report's been released and the pork producers had the chance to go through it. While there has been some wins, there are also some worries that they see in that report. We hear now from Dr. Johnson.
Live on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network and being joined today by Dr. Ashley Johnson of the National Pork Producers Council. And Ashley, thanks so much for visiting with us once again.
Yes, thank you.
So I know last month in Washington Watch, we caught up talking about some of the dietary issues and things like that. But one of the things that was kind of looming was the upcoming MAHA report. And so now that we've got that, let's touch base on, from the dietary issues and stuff, what kind of things is National Pork concerned with? What are some things maybe you can find common ground on? Let's kind of get that overview.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is such an incredibly important report because it's eventually going to actually inform a strategy that's going to come out later this summer. And one of the big buckets that it points to is this nutritional component when it relates to childhood chronic diseases. And, you know, yes, there's a few things we can point to. If we had spoke 6 months ago, which I think we probably did, we were fighting this battle about plant-based, right? I think everybody was going to have to gear up to eat lots of peas, beans, and lentils. And that's kind of been able to go away. We were able to silence a lot of that rhetoric. And, you know, meat's kind of back on the plate, which is good. We absolutely, that's a good win for Team Pork. And you know, but this report really points to whole foods, which is great for fresh cuts. Lard is back, in case anybody wants to know. Lard is back. And so those are some really great things to point to because we know pork is healthy. But some of the things that I would call out as watch outs and that could be very detrimental to the pork industry is this negative rhetoric around ultra-processed foods. And the problem here is that ultra-processed foods, there's no legal definition. And it's very difficult even within, the nutrition community to kind of agree upon these things. And unfortunately, a lot of pork products get lumped into the same category as something like, you know, a chip that you get at the store or a honey bun or something like that. And that just shouldn't be, right? We all know, like, if my kid goes to school tomorrow and he gets the choice of either a pork sausage or a honey bun, those things are not created equal. Any person can see that and understand that. But they're actually being placed in the same category and saying that they're harmful to their health. And it's like, no, this sausage actually does really good things for them. And so that's where we're kind of faced with this huge challenge of being able to separate that out, especially because there's a lot of pork products that rely on, being able to have increased shelf stability, be able to have food additives that help protect food safety. And so we need to make sure to protect that, and especially to make sure it's rooted in science. There's a huge attack on food additives right now that are being brought into this nutritional space when those food additives have been proven safe.
So maybe you can elaborate maybe from where they're trying to come from, or maybe some of the confusion can lie where people might not understand why sausage shouldn't be a part of this, but where they might be saying it is a part of this, and then explain why it's not in that category.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a huge amount of confusion because, like I said, there's a lot of disagreement. And the most common definition out there is what's called from the NOVA classification, where it breaks it down into 4 categories. The last 2 are kind of the most important to kind of pay attention to is processed versus ultra-processed. Processed, a lot of times, our bacon is actually put in that. And then ultra-processed, you're going to have your sausages, your hot dogs, but your deli meats, things like that. The problem here is that, once again, adding in these food additives could potentially actually move that bacon into that ultra processed, because there's food additives that are used to make sure, once again, to not allow bacterial pathogens, which I don't want in my food, to be allowed. And so that is really a lot of confusion here of how do we separate that out? How do we actually look at the ultra processed foods that really should be in that category, that have no nutritional benefit? Those are the ones that we should really be focused on, and not the ones such as pork products that have nutrient, density. They have nutrients to be able to feed the body. And so there needs to be that distinction. That is absolutely what needs to happen. And there's just so much confusion around this subject. And I think that we need to be a voice to be able to protect those products and make sure that they're available.
So I know you mentioned it, and we talked with Michael Formica yesterday as well. There's going to be more coming in August, and that's really where it's going to get down to the nitty-gritty of what you guys are going to have to plan to address this. I mean, what kind of things can we possibly expect in this report? Maybe what makes that report coming up in August different than what we saw come out here earlier?
Yeah, absolutely. I've kind of actually deemed this the summer of nutrition. There's a lot going on in the nutrition space. This MAHA report, the strategy will come out. It's due by August 12th. We also have the dietary guidelines coming out this summer. And a lot of that is going to mirror what has been said in this report. We expect, because it's so negative on ultra-processed foods, that it's going to go after ultra-processed foods as well. And then, we also have a new consumer campaign coming out. Don't know if anybody can guess the shape, because we grew up on the pyramid, right? Triangle. Then it was my plate, a circle. So I don't know what shape's going to come out this time to be able to inform the public on what they should or should not eat. But there's a lot of things happening. And really what we have to do at this time is engage. The problem that happened with this initial assessment, agriculture was not invited to the table. And that is a huge issue when it comes to something that's going to have a major impact on agriculture. And so, we are all kind of raising our voices to say, hey, we're here to talk. We want to be a part of this. We want to, of course, make kids and everybody healthy. That's why we put a good protein product on your plate. And so I think that is really the big steps here, is to make sure that we're involved in this conversation, to make sure that what happens this summer is actually based in science, and that this policy comes out is not going to be detrimental to producers in America, and that we also keep pork on the plate.
It's interesting. You say something that we hear so much when we deal with agriculture in general. Ag was not at the table.
Yes, and this was not by choice. Let me tell you, it was very unfortunate that this was done kind of behind closed doors. And you speak to a lot of the barnyard and agricultural groups, and it's nobody was invited, and that's disappointing. It's very disappointing, especially with such a good job that our producers and farmers do every single day to be able to produce food, protect our land, protect our animals. And so there's so much there that, we need to be a part of that conversation, because without the farmers and producers doing it, we're not going to have food. And so that is absolutely critical, and to make sure moving forward that we are at the table.
And moving forward, obviously, we have a president who says he's got the farmers back. He wants to make sure they're successful, but yet you have someone in his cabinet saying that we need to go after the ag industry. How do you get that message to the administration that, hey, you're saying one thing and then doing another?
Yeah, and that's a very difficult thing to come across. Is we need to really have, of course, Secretary Rollins. She is the ag secretary, and needs to kind of stand up for us and be able to make that distinction of, hey, this is about farmers, this is about agriculture. We need to have them in at the table to make sure that what is being said, what the policy is going to come out, makes sense, that it's based in science. And so I think that there's a lot of that needs to happen. We need to have those champions come from agriculture. And we need agriculture in general to use their voices, right? It's a strong community. It's people that are very proud of the work that they do, as they should. And I think that that's something that needs to happen, is to be able to, kind of raise our voices of concern and, of pride of what you guys do every single day, and to make sure that message comes through, so that we are there, and that there is that separation of, making sure that agriculture is at the forefront.
All right, so if folks want to learn about what National Pork is doing to help keep that fight going, keep that conversation going, where do they find more information?
they can find more information anytime, contacting us. NPPC, we do, we're a small but mighty team, and we do a lot of work behind the scenes, in front of the scenes, and there's so much out there that we are trying to make sure to defend the freedom to operate, defend our producers, and there's a lot of information even that's coming out in the media, right? I think there's more and more that we're learning from this report that I think everybody needs to understand how these things would actually even come down to your level. If you're a farmer, if you're a processor, what would these mean to you personally? And I think another thing too is to pay attention, in your local district. Pay attention to what's happening in your state. We're seeing a lot of things come into the state, such as state bans. Labeling, even in California, they have a huge bill right now against ultra-processed foods, and they've taken it even further and said particularly harmful ultra-processed foods. I think it's so critical to pay attention. It's actually what's going on in your town, what's going on in your state, and to be that voice, to be able to speak up for agriculture, and once again, be a part of that grassroots movement to be able to move that needle and protect agriculture.
All right. Well, Dr. Ashley Johnson's been our guest here on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. Doctor, thank you so much for taking the time.
Yes, thank you.
That again was Dr. Ashley Johnson of the National Pork Producers Council. We're going to take a short break and hear from our sponsor, the Iowa Soybean Association and the Soy Checkoff. When we come back, we'll go through the closing markets. This is Ag Matters PM.
Iowa Soybean Association is driven to deliver for Iowa's 40,000 soybean farmers. We're proud to provide objective agronomic research, a helping hand with soil and water stewardship, and timely industry news powered by the Soybean Checkoff. Learn more at iasoybeans.com.
It's time now for the Ag Matters PM Closing Market Summary, your source for market analysis and settlement prices from the day's trade in Chicago, courtesy of the folks at agmarket.net.
We're back on Ag Matters PM, and it's time to do our closing markets. And we're talking right now with Kaden Sweeney of agmarket.net. And Kaden, a little bit of a rough day in the grains today. Kind of explain what happened.
Yeah, I mean, what else is new, right? The sun came up today and water is wet and corn's down again. Unfortunately, just the story we've been seeing here again over the last couple of weeks. We had hoped maybe seeing a turnaround Tuesday today. We had a really nice new crop export sale to Mexico this morning. Still didn't do any good. Corn's still down 4 to 5 here, beans down close to 10, and wheat down 18 or so here into the close. So again, certainly an ugly one again, kind of off the heels of what we've been seeing.
Is it mostly weather driven right now? I know there's a lot of things in the air that the markets are watching, geopolitically and all over the place, but the market numbers, the weather numbers, progress numbers yesterday were not terrible overall.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, that's what is really head scratching about all of it. And I think the easy answer is the funds are just selling it hard. The hard answer is why they're doing that, but they're short over 200,000 contracts of corn at this point. It seems like the market's given them, plenty of reason to think about lifting some of those, but they just continue to press it. But, like you said, some geopolitical stuff's going on, weather's going on. Kind of felt like we had, seen a pretty hot, dry ridge come in late last week. We saw a little bit of buying, and just feels like forecasts have added some moisture back in, and funds are pretty happy just selling that right now. I think that's a lot of the story in the wheat market as well, after we had a nice run up last week on wet weather and guys unable to get in. There's a lot of progress being done right now, and the wheat market's feeling it.
All right, then switching over to the livestock side of things, I know cattle has been quite volatile the last couple of days. Nothing new really when you think about it, but how did the livestock play out with cattle and hogs?
Yeah, kind of quieter day today. What do we got here? Fats down 70 cents and feeders down 55. So, altogether fairly quiet. Hogs are down over $2. But, cattle market, hard to feel too bad about it right now, especially the way grains look. But, when you're at such steep highs and contract highs, really, the moves are going to be a bit more volatile. Cattle are still holding support pretty well, and hogs are too. I guess I'm not overly concerned about any of the three of them. I think if you're a producer who's been, kind of holding out any pricing and waiting for the high, I think this may be a bit of an alarm clock just to start laying in some put options just in case. There's nothing on the charts that looks overly worrisome, but we are rolling over a bit here, and you never know, what next week can bring, let alone tomorrow. So I think it's a good idea to manage some risk here, but nothing looks, quite as ugly yet as it could be.
And speaking of things that could happen next week, we know the big quarterly grain stocks report at the end of the month, one of them that the market watches very closely. Anything in your crystal ball that's standing out right now, or are you still kind of putting those numbers together?
Yeah, I mean, on the quarterly stock side, it sure feels like the market at least wants to think it knows something we don't. Over the last really since February, our ending stocks from a WASI perspective are down, I think, 200 million bushels, and corn's down $1, and those things usually do not go that way. So would not be shocked to see a larger than expected quarterly stock number. That's purely my opinion, but just the way the cash and spreads are acting, it feels like there's plenty of corn out there. Acre wise, ag market, as the companies put out estimates, they'll be coming out shortly, but we're seeing or suggesting just a small increase in acres, still staying under 96, but in the mid to upper 95s there for corn acres. And remains to be seen, certainly, but I my gut feeling is that the acre report turns out to be a bit quieter than the stocks report, at least as we sit here today.
All right, Kaden, if folks want to talk about some of the options they've got, especially if it comes to doing any late marketing here, what's the best way for them to get in touch with agmarket.net?
Yes, sir. Just go to our website, agmarket.net, and you can reach anyone from our team there and kind of discuss, plan going forward and managing both some old crop bushels. Hopefully they're all gone, but if they're not, manage those as well as new crop too.
All right. Well, Kaden Sweeney's been our guest here today. Kaden, thanks so much for the insight. We'll talk to you again real soon.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you, man. Have a good one.
And that again was Kaden Sweeney of agmarket.net. Let's go ahead and take a look at the closing numbers on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network market screen.
At the close, July corn was down 3 at 4.16 1/4. Soybeans down 12 cents at 10.46 3/4. Soybean meal $1.90 lower at 2.8050. Soy oil $1.07 lower at 52.17. Chicago wheat down 17 cents at 5.35 3/4. Kansas wheat down 15 1/4 at 5.34 3/4. Minneapolis spring wheat down 1 3/4 at 6.25, and oats down 3 1/4 at 3.63 1/2. On the Merck live cattle up 17 cents at 209.55. Feeders down 55 cents at 302.25. July lean hogs $1.22 lower at 112.22. Pork cutouts unchanged at 121.55. Class 3 milk 28 cents lower at 16.98.
And that's our closing market recap, and that brings us to the end of today's show. You can find all our content once again at iowaagnet.com, as well as follow us on Facebook, X, and our YouTube channel. Make sure you're clicking the bell icon and subscribing so you're notified each time we put out a new video project. Also, you can find full replays of our Iowa Ag Matters program, Weekend Ag Matters, and much more under the podcast tab there, as well as our 3 times a day free market analysis, which can be sent right to your mobile device through Amazon, Apple, YouTube, Spotify, and Podbean. From the iAron Studios in Des Moines, I'm Dustin Huffman. For Ashton Jolly, Riley Smith, Mark Magnuson, and Andy Peterson, we thank you for watching. This has been Ag Matters PM.